After waking up from a horrific car accident, April must find a way to work through her trauma and a will to survive a recovery from hell. That's the logline for the new movie Night Night. The psychological thriller also features in the lead role Brianna D'Amico, as well as horror film icon Tony Todd.
That's a pretty big place to be, staying alone.
And screen veteran Eric Roberts.
Do you remember anything prior to the accident?
It's directed by my friend Niki Koss. And on this special edition of RXG Exclusives, I sit down with Nick Marini and Brooke Ann Smith, stars of the new film Night Night.
We must open up our minds, take a look inside. That we find we hold all the answers tonight.
You're watching RXG Exclusives.
Oh, they tried to keep us away, yeah.
Nick Marini, thanks for joining me. I want to jump right in and talk about our friend Niki Koss. I've had the honor and pleasure of producing alongside her and also acting under her direction. And what I know about her is that she is a go-getter and very deliberate about what she's looking for creatively, yet also collaborative. What was your experience like being directed by her? And why are voices like hers, particularly women filmmakers, so vital in this cinematic landscape?
Well, first of all, I felt like this was an incredibly collaborative process. I felt like she knows what she wants, but she also lets you as the actor go out and do your thing and really trusts that you will. And I think that comes from her being an actress as well. And I think, one of the things that was so fun about this project was it felt very contemporary to like my age, and it was a lot of people similarly aged working on something which felt just very fresh and exciting. And I think cinema, like so many things in the world, has suffered from a lack of voices from different perspectives, and I think it is it's important now more than ever that we balance those scales going forward. And I think it's like this was written by a man who lives in tech, an older man, not older, but like a man, not he's not 20. Who lives in Texas, who's a police chief. And then he's got this young woman from Los Angeles directing it. And, I think it's nice to see something like that happening.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And how did you come aboard Night Night? Was there a direct offer? Was it an audition process? What was that experience like?
Yeah, it was sort of both. I auditioned for a smaller role in the film, and there were some scheduling conflicts, and there was an opening for Robert all of a sudden. And so I had 2 days before I got to set, found out that I was going to be playing Robert.
Wow.
I was flying back from a wonderful vacation in Australia with my partner and her family. And I had to just be like, you guys have to talk to my agent because I'm about to be on a plane for 13 hours with no Wi-Fi. So like, I guess this is what's happening. And I'll when I land in 13 hours, I'll get the info. So it was just sort of thrust in there, which was, I think, to your point earlier about her being collaborative, I think that really helped. I just had to jump in the deep end and trust that I'd be sent in the right direction.
Right. I think we've been joined by one of your co-stars.
Hello, hello, hello.
Brooke Ann Smith. Hello. How are you, Brooke?
Hi, how are you guys doing?
Pretty good. Nice to have you here. How did you come aboard the project, and what was it like working with Niki, who is obviously a female voice in the industry, which is extremely important?
Absolutely. Well, I actually met Niki because we have a mutual friend, Jamie Gallagher, who's a casting director who had cast me in a few other projects, was working on Night Night as well. And I had met Niki through her a few months prior. And I guess when she started making Night Night, she thought of me and sent the script over. And I obviously fell in love with it. I thought it was so interesting. I knew it was going to be very stylized, and just working with a female director, not only that as a female, but also an actress as well. It's a different perspective that I really appreciate, because a lot of directors aren't actors, and there's a certain element there where you can really, they can really speak the actor language and really understand you. So I was really excited to become a part of the project.
April, wake up! Do you have to be careful mixing wine and pills like that?
I haven't slept in 2 days. And I'm just feeling very vulnerable and confused right now, because what if there's a logical explanation for all of this?
So this is one of those films where you sort of have to speak in code so you don't give anything away. What can you tell me about the characters of Robert and Lauren, about who they are, without revealing too much? Either.
Well, for my character Lauren, I think the thing that drew me most to the script was her strength with her family. Just the fact that she's a mother and loves her kids and her children. And I think it's the same for Robert too, but I'll let him let Nick speak on that. But I think just, yeah, the strength of the mother, and how we can go through emotional things in our lives as people, because mothers aren't just mothers, fathers aren't just fathers. That I think, you know, when you're having an emotional problem, you're going through some sort of devastation, you still are a parent. You still have to figure out how to juggle those things. So that was for me what was most interesting about Lauren, is just the love that she has for her family and wanting to keep them together and doing whatever she can to make that happen.
Right. Nick?
Yeah, no, I think Brooke put it really well. And I also, I didn't get a chance to see you the other night, Brooke, but I just wanted to say, I thought it was lovely work. You really have such an integral role in starting the film off on the right foot, and it was wonderful to watch.
Oh, thank you. I second that for you.
Thank you.
And I'm just glad to get that exclusive, so thank you.
But no, I think a lot of what you said is true for Robert. I mean, I think Robert is a very complicated person who gets, you know, he's we first see him sort of after an accident, and his girlfriend is in the hospital, and you know, we just see sort of this journey that he sort of takes, but that is often, you know, I think what's fun about a psychological thriller is you don't ever want to give too much away, both in like an interview situation, but also in your performance. And so it was really interesting sort of knowing what his driving factors were, some of which were sort of in conflict with each other. And I don't know that his goals are fully formed necessarily when we first meet him. I think they're definitely present, but I don't know if they're like set upon. And so getting to sort of navigate that was fun.
All right, guys, here we go. Quiet on the set. And so just to reiterate, we're starting from you scaring her, and y'all just step into this.
Now, you shot this film in Texas, right? And completed principal photography right before the world shut down. That must have been rather surreal. I'm sure projects got postponed or canceled, and the lockdown likely resulted in some delays for Night Night. How did you manage in the height of the pandemic? And how are you managing now that the pandemic is still going on, regardless of some people's opinions?
Absolutely. Well, for me, COVID hit me really personally because my mom actually got really sick. We still don't know what it was, but she was in the ICU with like pneumonia and the flu in December, right before we filmed Night Night. She was still in the ICU in January, and she had gotten out, I think, like on the 7th of January, and I went to go film like on that day. So my mind was definitely on that. And then we filmed Night Night, and I don't think people really knew what COVID was yet. It kind of started picking up a little bit after we wrapped production. But Niki got sick as well. But I think she had allergic reaction, the director, and she was she was having to direct from the hospital for a day, I think. So sickness definitely, played a part. It always does. In production, things happen, and you just kind of have to, muster through it. But for me personally, I was really busy in 2020 filming. I did 2 other films, which during COVID, which was shocking because I didn't think I would be. But we found ways. You're testing every single day, multiple tests a day. We got shut down a few times because there was a COVID outbreak. I think now they're, with SAG and all the rules, they make sure you're vaccinated now that we have a vaccine. But even the latest project I did, the vaccine was available, but they weren't requiring it then for me back in September. But I had to do 3 COVID tests a day. 2 of the quick ones that are 15 minutes, and then the PPE, I think, which is the 24-hour, just to make sure everyone's safe. And then you're always masked up. But yeah, it does come with challenges.
Yeah, obviously I'm fully vaccinated, but I haven't had the pleasure of having one of those tests. But I hear they're very intrusive, but necessary.
Yes, totally. Yeah, it's I've worked on a couple TV shows and getting tested multiple times beforehand, getting tested while you're shooting. They're really taking safety seriously, which I respect. And the industry, I think, has come back pretty substantially. Honestly, the people who are getting hit hardest are the indies and are the short films, because if you're budgeting for a short film and suddenly you have to budget for 20 COVID tests, that's double your budget for some people. So I think it's hit low budget things pretty hard. And that's just the situation, and we have to be safe right now.
Well, whether it's a health-related lockdown or the constant rejection that we face as artists every day, how do you both stay motivated and creative when things don't necessarily seem to be going your way? Because I'm sure you haven't gotten everything that you wanted.
Yeah, I mean, I think I always say, being an artist is a marathon. It's a marathon. It's a sort of a way of life, in that you are making decisions that aren't always the best long-term decision. If what you want is to budget your money and buy a house at 25, you might be able to do that because you book something, or you might be working and for years before something happens. So it's definitely a long-term thing, and it's, I think, a thing that you have to be totally passionate about, because it's super difficult. And even when you get something, I always say to my friends who aren't actors, I'm like, even when you book something, 4 months later, 2 months later, 2 weeks later, you're looking for work again. The highlight of your year could be 2 weeks.
They always say acting is a temp job, right?
Yeah. So I think you have to know that you really want it. You have to pursue it doggedly. And ultimately, you have to be really grateful that when you do get to work, you get to do something that is so fulfilling, so fun and exciting and challenging. And, I think everyone during the pandemic realized, just how important the arts can be.
Yeah, and just to add on to what Nick is saying, I think, as an artist, as a storyteller, it's kind of, you got to be all in. You have to be 100% committed. And you have to understand that most of the time you're going to get rejected. And some few things that help me with it when those times seem to be more rejection than a yes, is just, I have a favorite quote. And it's, I'd rather be a failure at something I love than a success at something I hate. And so that's just kind of something about, for me, knowing that I'm a dreamer and that I have these dreams and these goals that I want to achieve as a storyteller, as an artist, and I'm all in. So I'm going for it no matter what. So there's a level of commitment, kind of going back off of what Nick is saying. You have to really be you know, sure that this is something you want to do, because it's not the easiest. People think it's so glamorous. It's a lot of work for not a lot of a lot of work for free when you're auditioning, and not a lot back until you get those jobs, and then it's worth it. But I kind of look at it like a long line. You know, you're standing in this long line, and people are constantly dropping out of it, and all it takes is one yes. You know, I always say to myself, I'm like, well, Brooke, you're one day closer to your next yes. You know, and that's what keeps me going, because it takes one yes to change your life. It takes one yes to be able to buy that house. It takes one yes in some project that puts you on the map, and it doesn't mean you're a better actor all of a sudden because people notice. It's just the luck of the draw. So you have to just know, like, you got to get some luck, and you just have to keep going.
Wise and inspirational words. Brooke, can you give us that quote one more time? It's so important.
Absolutely. I'd rather be a failure at something I love than a success at something I hate.
Wow. Now, Nick, I know you come from an artistic family. What have your loved ones done, and what do they do to help your continued artistic growth?
Well, first growing up, they were like, don't go into this business, for all the reasons we just spoke of. Both my parents were in the theater, so I sort of grew up in the green rooms of the East Coast. To some extent, I just learned so much through osmosis. I just learned so much, like drawing in the back of the theater while my dad directed a play, or like sitting around the green room while I'm, chatting with actors while my mom was on stage in a performance. Doing my home, I did a lot of home was done backstage. But I think the big thing is it's, sort of generational knowledge. It wasn't necessarily the situation that like my parents could just like introduce me to the big wig here and that I was off and running. Like it wasn't that situation, but they knew what agencies were reputable and what weren't. They knew like, if you're trying to do this, try to, like this is how you might get there. So I think, for the same reason that like some people whose parents are doctors become doctors, it's like, because you have an understanding that's a little more innate of how things work. And you have examples that you've watched your whole life. I was lucky enough to just sort of grow up around a ton of incredible actors, incredible directors. And, I think that having parents who understand how difficult it is really cool. And like my dad is a fantastic theater director. And he came to see a play that I was in, and he was like, it's not my job to give you notes, but that first time you walk out, let us see you a little bit. Wait a little bit longer to deliver that line. And the first performance after he left, the director comes back and he goes, did your dad give you a note? And I go, he didn't think it was his place. He did give me one small note. And he goes, was it to take more time at the top? And I went, yeah. And he went, it was a good note. And so it's those little things, it's like just having people who are masters at their craft be able to just sort of help guide you has been really helpful.
Now, Nick, in addition to Night Night, you have a role on the hit Netflix series Cobra Kai. Some of your other credits include the Jason Alexander series Hit the Road and Chicago Med. You've amassed a body of work. I was born and raised in Philly. I know you have a Pennsylvania connection.
Birds.
How did you go from East Coast living to the bright lights of Hollywood?
Totally. I'm Philadelphian through and through. I grew up partly in New York as well, in Hell's Kitchen, but Philly is really where I call home. I think my mother is fifth generation Californian from Northern California. So California was always a little bit in my blood. We would come to visit her family. And my older brother, who's born and raised in New York, growing up, he was always like, you're a California kid. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, I'm from the East Coast. Like, I'm from like cities. And he's like, yeah, but like, you're going to like, I think he knew before I did that I'd end up out here. And I really love LA. I mean, I think you have to sort of wade through it. It's not a pedestrian city. So you have to like figure out where you actually want to go and realize that anywhere you want is like 40 minutes from everything else. So it takes some getting used to, but I've really grown accustomed to it. And I just do miss the fall. I miss a Philadelphia East Coast fall.
And Brooke, I know that you starred on the hit short-lived Tyler Perry series, Too Close to Home. How did you go from dreaming about being an actor to doing it for a living?
You know, I actually started acting when I was 15, so I've been doing it a really long time. And when I fell into it in the way that I did, I just kind of hit the ground running really fast. I had a lot of luck really early on, and I was able to like continue that. I think the biggest challenge for me was just being able to kind of go out of that box that they wanted to put me in as being a younger actor, being blonde and having a higher voice and those things of just like the cheerleader roles and the girlfriend and all of that. I'm just getting taken seriously. So on like Too Close to Home, I played, you know, Shelby Hayes, who was a drug addict who lived in a trailer park. I had a really thick Southern accent. I was my background, my character was sexually abused as a child, and so you know, I love to go into these darker, deeper roles that kind of challenge me and stretch me and kind of, you know, outside the box of what people expect. So I think most of my career I've just been fighting to show that I can do more than just one thing. And I think it's really important for actors to be able to show their versatility.
Now, I'm an actor and a filmmaker, and I always tell fellow artists and those who aspire not to wait for opportunity to knock on the door. You've got to get out there and create opportunities for yourself and for others. And aside from being an actor, I know that you, Nick, are also a director. How has being in front of the camera prepared you for being behind it?
Yeah, I think directing was something that was inevitable for me, given that I grew up watching my father do it and my mother. I think that being an actor just it helps. I know what conversations are helpful and what sort of conversations are just like a little too you know, just in the moment, like how to talk to an actor depending on what the scene is. Obviously there are still things I'm learning, but as a director, I caught the bug. I directed a music video recently for an artist called Lupico, and it was just I knew I was going to enjoy it, but I didn't realize how much I would. And so I'm definitely I got a few things that I'm trying to finish writing or start writing, and hoping to get behind the camera directing something again soon.
And Brooke, do you have any plans to be behind the camera in addition to your acting work?
Yes, I have been writing as well. I think it's good to just have creative outlets. So I actually created a TV show, and it's a comedy, a dark comedy, hour long. But I have like 4 episodes written, and I've had some interest. So I definitely am always pursuing other avenues. I wouldn't say no to you know, being behind the camera, but as it stands, I really kind of know where my heart is, and that's being in front of the camera. And for me, acting is definitely where my passion is. So, but I think it's great to have creative outlets and take control of your own craft and be able to learn all the different facets of the industry. That's only going to make you a more well-rounded human being and a better actor, and better to understand exactly what's going on the set. So.
As actors, I'm sure there are a bevy of characters that you would love to play. But when all is said and done, which will be a very long time from now, what do you want your work to say about you? What is the Nick Marini legacy? What is the Brooke Ann Smith legacy?
I guess I'll take it. For me, I kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. I want my work to inspire. I want to tell stories, obviously, but I want to make people think about things differently than they do. For example, on Too Close to Home, my character was supposed to be the one everybody hated, but by the end of, you know, even the first season, people were rooting for her, and it's because you have to bring a certain level of heart to everything that you do, not just playing something to make people question, like, why is she doing that, and understanding that we're telling stories about people who do exist, or like maybe not in a reality form, but in a different version of reality of a certain situation. Like even in Night Night, I mean, the gaslighting and the you know, betrayal and the whole thing of questioning yourself, it's all things we can relate to and experience. So for me, I just want to move people, and I want to make them think about things a little differently than maybe they did when they first started watching some of my work.
Totally. I love that. I mean, I feel very similarly. You know, if I'm playing especially a darker character, you know, my hope always is that someone who is making similarly bad decisions maybe has an opportunity to see themselves and see, just go like, whoa, is that me? Is that what I'm doing? Like, I was, that is a definite goal. But I think on a sort of broader sort of career, you know, if I could have accomplished something by the end of my career, I think something that I'm really interested in is masculinity, and I think so much of what masculinity is has become polluted or corrupted by toxic masculinity, and I think that you know, in the last 100 years, women have done a lot to redefine what being a woman means, and the pushed against some of the preconceptions that had been laid upon an entire half the population, and really redefine themselves in a empowering and good way. And I think masculinity needs to do that as well. I think masculinity needs to find what is beautiful about it, and also get rid of the toxic parts. And so if I can find roles that sort of both reinforce the positive and push against the negative, that's something I would like. That's something I'm always sort of searching for, is that sort of role, is someone where you go like, oh, I think I know what this is, and then you go, oh, interesting, they're not doing those sort of more traditionally toxic bullshit. You know, I think we need to do that as a concerted effort of just sort of redefining that term.
Well, Nick and Brooke, thank you so much. Congratulations on the release of Night Night, which is now playing on demand, and all of your successes. This was fantastic.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure being on.
Thank you so much. This was a real pleasure.
I'm Robert X. Golphin for RXG Exclusives. Thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time.
Make sure to like, comment, and hit subscribe on our YouTube channel so you never miss out. RXG Exclusives, hosted by Robert X. Golphin, now playing.